Verse 24, they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led away captive into all nations, and Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. So you cannot understand what the Great Tribulation is if you take Israel, the nation of Israel, out of the picture, because it's all connected to them. The beginning of it is connected to the dismantling of Israel as a nation, and the ending of it is connected to the coming back of Israel as a nation. Right? That's it. And so, the scripture tells us that the tribulation would last for 40 and 2 months. It would start, okay, and that's what it says there, 40 and 2 months. And that's 40 and 2 months. It also says again, is 1260 days. Right? And then later on it speaks of it as 3 days and a half. Okay. And I think most of us know that in prophecy, a day is a year, right? As God told Ezekiel, I think it was Ezekiel chapter 2, he said, I've appointed you each day for a year. Right? Where's that verse? Anyway, I didn't make a note of it for this study, but it's right there. Ezekiel, a day is a year. Now the year was reckoned according to days, 360 days, right? And it was just a steady 360 days. Not like now we have it vacillating between 365, 365 and a quarter, 366, and some countries have a different calendar and all this other thing, and all this confusion is creating problems why we can't understand some of the things that are in the prophecies. And so the scripture says 40 and 2 months, which would be 42 times 30, right? Because you divide 360 by 12, you get 30, right? So 30 days would be a month, right? And the 42 months will bring you back to 1260 days. Now the scripture also speaks of it in a figure as 3 days and a half. Okay? While in Daniel chapter 12, it speaks of it as, says here, verse 7, and I heard a man clothed in linen, which was upon the waters of the river, when he held up his right hand and his left hand unto heaven, and swear by him that liveth forever and ever, and it shall be for a time, times and a half. Okay? And when he shall have accomplished to scatter the power of the holy people, all these things shall be finished. And it goes back again, speaking about Israel, right? As a nation. Israel, it all started with them, and it ends with them. Okay? All started with them. Now, by the time when all of this is coming to pass, in the middle of all of this, there was a great tribulation. There was a great tribulation before Israel became a nation again. Right? So some of you are hearing today about that. There's a great tribulation to come. You see, the great tribulation came about when Israel was scattered as a nation. Okay? That's the first I hear that. Okay? When Israel was scattered as a nation, when they were not a people. Okay? And I think by now everybody knows that there is a nation of Israel today, right? Which became a nation in 1948. They have their own money, which they call the shekel. They started out with the British pound because they were colonized by the British. But when they became conscious, they realized they needed their own money. So they went back to using a shekel, which is about one of the most recognized money in the world. It's a recognized money in the world today. But I'm saying to you that this great tribulation took place in that time. Okay? And as the Bible tells you, and I give you an idea of what was happening at the time. It says they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be delivered, and shall be led away captive into all nations. Is that what it says? Read for yourself. And Jerusalem will be trodden down of the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. Okay? So here we have so you got the 42 months, which is the same 1260 days, right? And in one case it speaks about time, and the time was a year. Okay? So when you read the prophets say, my times are in your hands, it means my years, my days are in your hands. Everything is in your hands. A time was 1 year, and the times was spoke about was 2 years. Time, times, and dividing of time. No, I didn't read the word about dividing of time. That one is in Daniel chapter 7. Alright? And it says here, verse 24, and the 10 horns out of the kingdom are 10 kings that shall arise, and another shall arise after them, and he shall be diverse from the first, and he shall subdue 3 kings. Right? And he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and shall think to change times and laws, and they shall be given into his hand until a time and times and dividing of time. It's speaking about the very same thing. And the Jews became, as they were called afterwards, became a target. A target. A target. Now, if you go back to Revelation 11, which is the scripture we started with, right? It says that he gave power to his 2 witnesses that they should prophesy 1,260 days. But it said that these 2 witnesses are the 2 olive trees. And I really can't go into all of these things. One time I was preaching on this thing, it took me 2 hours straight about the 2 olive trees. I have to go back to Zechariah for that, right? And in Zechariah 4, but these 2 olive trees he was talking about here, and he spoke about 2 witnesses. And they were talking about the prophets and the apostles. And it speaks clearly about what used to happen. When he talk about they could call down fire. We know Elijah did that. We know Moses held out his rod. He turned the waters into blood. In the days of the apostles, of the prophets, there were mighty things being done by the prophets. And these things were happening at a time when Israel was coming to be a nation, or they were a nation, and they were people. But after Israel rejected their Messiah, and Pilate told them that, he said, this is your king. This is your king. I know that Caesar is my king, but I'm a Roman. But I'm telling you, Jewish people, this is your king. Why do you want me to kill him? And they railed on him, saying, we have no king but Caesar. And he said to them, so what should I do with your king? He said, crucify him. And he said to them at the time, I'm innocent of this blood. But they said to him something that really damned them until this very day. When they said, his blood be on us and our children. They didn't know what they were saying. As Jesus said on the cross, Father, forgive them, they know not what they do. They had no idea how damned their generations afterward by those words which came out of their mouth. And so, they were scattered. They were taken as like the dregs of this earth. It's like today people talk about people living in a ghetto. And they don't know that the word ghetto was the place where they would throw Jews. That's what it was. So in other words, it was a place that was despised. And right now, even in America here, there's a time when Jews were despised too. They're very much recognized today, but they were despised. At one time, they went into a store and they wanted to buy something. They wouldn't serve them, just like somebody might call it, right? And if they went into a place to drink, they wouldn't serve them either, right? These are things that were happening right up in the days of Dr. King. Not that long, right? Not that long. Right in my lifetime, all these things were happening. And then right now, some places might still be happening, okay? Just despised because they were people of God, and everywhere they went, they took the name of God with them. And that's what was the thing that Satan didn't like, because the name Israel means as a prince at the power with God and with men has prevailed. So the name actually has God attached to it. And everywhere they went, people saw them as like they despised them. And when they had a problem, they would just want to kill them out for nothing. Okay? Now here comes the disciples who came from Jerusalem, right? And so it was, they suffered too with this gospel. And the Nero, and there's so many of these Caesars that came afterwards. And it came to a point in time where the Jewish religion was were like banned. It was not, the government didn't want to have anything to do with it, right? The scriptures, the history tells us that Emperor Constantine was a friend to the Christians. Yet when he called his meeting at the Council of Nicaea, he never called Jewish priests. He didn't call anybody that had anything to do with Jewish background, because they didn't want their decisions to be based upon what was from the law of Moses, what had to do with that line. It had to do with their line, which had to do with idolatry. Okay, worship of the sun, worship of the stars, and all these kind of things. That's what they were used to, and that's what they wanted. Okay, so they made all their decisions, and they left out the Jewish culture out of it. And they pick and choose some things they wanted and some things they didn't want. And that is why the Bible said they taught to change times and laws, because they cut out things that God had ordained and put in their own things. Okay? And one of the things they didn't want this Jewish Shabbat to go on. Okay? Because it was something connected to God, the invisible God. And these people wanted to continue worshiping idols, worshiping the planets, the sun, the moon. As I said to you, the Bible said that when they found out that Paul was preaching and people were despising the shrine which is at the Diana, which is foolishness anyway. It's nothing. As the Bible said, idol is nothing. Right? And if you sacrifice to idols, you sacrifice to devils. Right? And they despise it. People were found and said, but, oh, so all this time we're spending all this money on nothing. Because now we're getting to find out the truth. That these idols are nothing. So they stopped spending their money on it. And these guys were making rich out of it. And so they decided that they have to put Paul and Silas in prison. Because the Bible said, you know, for 2 hours, everybody was crying out, great is that of the Ephesians. And all this excitement going on, that they had to come and say, well, what's going on? What's going on? Is a riot here? What's going on? They said, what did these men do? So they never did anything. So, but they beat them and put them in prison, right? Because they were so mad, right? They were so mad with Paul and Silas. Paul and Silas, because they wanted to continue this thing. They wanted to continue it. They wanted to continue it. They wanted to continue it. They don't want it to stop. Lord of mercy. You don't know why I'm saying this to you right now. Because even right now, I'm telling you, I know it, and I'm not guessing this. I'm saying it by divine inspiration. That we have a thing that's going on right now in this world, in coronavirus. And there are people who just don't want it to stop. Because they're making money off of it. Just like those cooks there that those days. Right? They're making money off of it. Right? Paul and Silas were thrown into prison because they took they cast out the devil out of the woman who was always was a psychic, and they were making money off of them. They threw them into prison, right? This thing about making money is driving people and souls down to hell, right? That even people who are supposed to preach the truth, they're not going to preach the truth because they're only trying to get the people. The Bible said what that verse here, man? I used it the other day. Let me just find it, man. In 2 Peter chapter 2, it said, and through covetousness, 2 Peter 2 verse 3, shall they with feigned words make merchandise of you, whose judgment now of a long time lingereth not, and their damnation slumbereth not. Right? Through covetousness, right? They make merchandise of you. Right? So, I'm saying to you that when the apostles were doing great things after Jesus left here too, but then there came a time when the devil decided to shut them down. Shut them down. And now all they had to do was to try to run for their lives. Okay? We have a Bible here, we can read it now, and let's take advantage of our liberties. Because the people who gave us this Bible, they gave us it through their blood. Right? This Bible didn't come to us, you know, today people don't even want to open their Bible. It came to us the price of blood. Right? When the Bible was given to man that he could read it, the authorities were so mad that they were burning Bibles. And you would never believe something like that. They burned children of God at the stake. They were given to lions. They were torn asunder. Right? All because they wanted to hold on to the faith that Jesus had given to them. And so they died. And the Bible said they would obtain a better resurrection. But the scripture is saying that for these people, their judgment is at hand. Their judgment is at hand. And the scripture tells you here that when they had finished their testimony, the beast that ascended out of the bottomless pit, right, shall make war against them and shall overcome them. And that's what we just read in Daniel. Okay? Because a beast in prophecy is a kingdom. Okay? And I'm not studying about all the beasts right now because that's in Daniel 7. But this beast here was working after the system of Rome. And he wanted to continue not just as a political power, but as a spiritual power. Right? Now, if you go back to the other kingdoms which were before, those kingdoms dealt with just the political part of it. They were only concerned about, you know, that I was the king, I was the emperor, I gave the laws, I gave the orders, and so forth. But even in those kingdoms, Jews were allowed to continue their religion, right? But they were captives. Daniel himself, as a Jew, became a very important man in the kingdom of Babylon, right? Was well known, very famous, right? Now that's something that's hard to even happen in this world today, where somebody who's a Jew would become that important, except it were in Israel, right? And with the nation of Israel. And so the scripture tells you that they would overcome them. And so they did. And as I said, they were running for their life now. And the scripture said it got so bad now. The scripture said it got so bad that their dead bodies lie in the streets of that great city, which is called Sodom. And so is the figure. Their dead bodies, they were now lying down. They were being killed, slaughtered, burned at the stake. Right? All these things were happening to them. Beheaded. Even Paul himself was beheaded. And all of these things were happening, coming down to subdue the gospel. And the Bible does tell you that the people of God did bear the brunt of the assault. Now let's go to Revelation chapter 12. And the scripture said, when the dragon was cast out of heaven, It says, verse 13, and when the dragon saw that he was cast out to the earth, he persecuted the woman which brought forth the man-child. Okay? And to the woman were given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness, into her place, where she is nourished for a time and times and a half. Okay? That's the same 3 days. It's using a 3 days and a half, using a figure to represent this very same thing. From the face of the serpent. And the serpent cast out of his mouth water as a flood after the woman, that he might cause her to be carried away by the flood. And the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened her mouth and swallowed up the flood, which the dragon had cast out of his mouth. And the dragon was wroth with the woman, and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which keep the commandments of God, and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. So, the dragon, right, who was the devil, he persecuted the woman. And that woman, of course, I don't even know what to say this, because the woman, of course, literally was Mary, who brought forth the child, right? Okay? And the Bible tells you, it said the child was caught up to God on his throne, right? So she's a daughter of Israel, okay? And so the people of Israel coming down, and the disciples and those who came from them, who came from Israel, all of them were in this persecution. All of them were in this persecution because the flood, the Bible said, he cast out a flood, right? As of persecution is the same great tribulation, right? And the scripture tells you that the woman fled. And that was what was happening to children of God at the time. They had to flee because they couldn't stay where they are in synagogues and all these places of worship. In fact, history tells us that Jews, when they had their clothes, they would sew pockets into it, where they would put their little jewelry and their little souvenirs, because at any time they would just issue an edict and said, all Jews get out of Rome, right? The Bible tells you Claudius Caesar even did it. He said that Aquila and Priscilla had to just leave, just like that, right? They used them as a scapegoat, as it were, like, as they just want to find a problem, they just use them, right? And I think, well, I don't want to get the racist thing right now about that, but I'm just saying to you that they use them as, when they just want to create an issue, that was it, they said, okay, all Jews get out of here. And all they had was the clothes on their back and they had to go. You know what happened? Somebody took away their possessions, right? I think that was in that story about Fiddler on the Roof, right? Right? That's exactly what was happening. And those things were happening even in our time, right? Even in our time. So what happened was that the scripture said that they overcame them. And all of those people, all of them who wanted to worship God, right, according to what they knew about the truth of God. Some of them didn't know as much as we know today. Some of them didn't know what we know, but what they knew, they lived by it, right? And as I'm talking about this today, I'm not trying to nail anybody or anybody's church. And I'm not doing that. Maybe one time I would have done, I'm not doing that. Because in my particular situation where I'm at church people, I've found evil and wicked people, and evil and wicked people are in every church. Okay? They don't know God. They don't know God. Okay? So I'm not going to tell you that because you're in a certain church, okay, that God is not going to save you. I'm not going to tell you that. Okay? That's left up to God. But what I do know is that some of these people who are being burned at the stake, right? Those people who are being torn by lions, it wasn't because they were in my church or they were in somebody's church or whatever. There were people who believed in God and they had a faith and they wanted to live according to their faith and according to their conscience. Now before I go back to, I'm going to go back to Revelation chapter 12. And the scripture said there, let's get to Revelation 13. We talk about that beast which came up out of the sea. And the sea means the people. And the scripture said, verse 5, there was given unto him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, and power was given unto him to continue 40 and 2 months. Same thing we looked at before. That's 1260 days. And the scripture goes on to say, and he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle, and them that dwell in heaven. And it was given unto him to make war with the saints, and to overcome them. And power was given him over all kindreds and tongues and nations. And all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, whose names are not written in the book of life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. If any man have ears to hear, let him hear. Right? And so the scripture said, 40 and 2 months, this was supposed to go on. And that goes back to what we read in Daniel 7. We talk about there was a horn which came up, which destroyed 3 nations, right? Which were the Hurulai, the Vandals, and the Ostrogoths, right? And all of these things are historic. You know, one thing that I wish I had, you know, Britannica encyclopedias like the days I studied from back in the 60s, those things, I don't know where to find them now. I guess they're in some museum, because you can't find these things in Google. And the thing, one of the worst things about internet information, that it is censored, and certain things will not put there. Okay, I was looking at Google the other day, and I saw it tell me that a question came up, and it said, who was Jesus' wife? And I was shocked. They had said on Google that Jesus had a wife. And you know, that thing really upset me, because I said to myself, if Mary Magdalene was the wife of Jesus, as they saying, and he left and went to heaven and left her by herself to die down here, you can imagine how a terrible husband he would have been, right? Eh? What a terrible husband he would have been. I mean, a wicked husband, right? To leave her behind and gone about his business until she should die here and be buried, and he wasn't even at the funeral. Right? So that's that, and there are people who will take that, right? Your people will take that. And this is why the Bible said all of them are going to worship him, whose names are not in the book of life. Because if you really believe something like that, I'm telling you, you must be damned to hell. You must be damned to hell. Right? Don't tell me about Jesus was friend to Mary Magdalene. But he was really married to her, and she was his wife, and he left her and went to heaven and left her behind. What kind of wicked husband would he be? So if you believe something like that, you're just like what the scripture said here. And there are people just like that. They will believe these lies of hell, because their names are not in the book of life. As I said to you the other day, when the Armageddon movie came up, the Lord told me why this movie came up. He said they're trying to catch not this generation, but the next generation. That by the time the next generation comes, to them Armageddon will be just a movie. For you, when you heard Armageddon, you knew it was something in the Bible. For them, they want, I would take away the Bible from them too, that generation. And by the time when they get to hear about Armageddon, it was just like, it was just a movie, nothing. What is it? Right? See, come another generation is going to tell you now that yes, Jesus had a wife. And they say God the Father had a wife too. Right? And then all of a sudden about who was Satan's father and who was Satan's mother and who was Satan. But I said to myself, Lord have mercy, what is this? Right? And then people will believe it. People who are even going to church will believe these things and hold on to them. But the Bible is telling you why they're holding on to these lies. Because their names are not written in the book of life. So don't hold on to everything you see on the internet. Because some things are censored. The things are changed. And a man can come and say to you, hey, listen, you know, I have X amount of money in this business, and I don't like so